Well, welcome. I've got Mark Winters with me today, rocket scientist turned musician. Welcome.
Hey, Tim, what's going on, brother?
Not much, man. I'm looking forward to this because this is an exciting story, man. And I really want to dive deep into it because when we first had our initial discovery call about this, I was just absolutely fascinated by your journey and your discovery of music and now your passion for sharing what you create and your musical creations with the world. So let's get right into it, man. Let's talk about first of all, your career path prior to music. Talk about your path into rocket science and aeronautical sciences.
Yeah, so I like just growing up, I loved. I don't know. I was curious. I had a lot of wonder about the world around me. How does it work, and how do pieces fit together? And had an affinity for math and science, and so I got to explore a lot. Just in school. If I was doing sports, just sort of learning about the physics of, football, baseball, tennis, whatever I was playing. I loved to understand the way things worked. And so coming out of, high school, I had, aspirations to learn more about, how things flew in the atmosphere. And I love, the feeling of pulling G's and riding a motorcycle or whatever. And so just the whole fascination with this sort of the feel of atmospheric flight. And so that led me into aerospace engineering. And I went to Texas A&M University and had a great program there and just had a great time immersing myself in the sciences. I also love strategy war games and other things. I had a blast just enjoying my time there at Texas A&M, and just got a chance in school to do some co-op work. My last couple of years at Bell Helicopter, so worked on some choppers and tilt wing aircraft, and then coming out of that built trainers for jets and choppers for the military based here in Houston. And just loving the math and science, man, doing the thing.
Yeah. So the trainers, remind me, are the trainers for recurrent training and that kind of thing too? Or is it specifically for military training?
Yeah, military. Yeah. So so I did the F-16, which is a jet, and then I did the 1W and the Apache, which are choppers. And the chopper ones, they were actually up like on a motion base. So 18 feet in the air, and you're up. You're flying it and you feel the G's on set because you can move the base around to get the feel for the pilot. It's got a full dome visual. It's like a giant video game, man. You're like, okay,
wow.
I'm ready to go. You've got the Hellfire missile system in there and you're sort of doing your thing. Yeah. So it feels very real, right? Everything just feels and smells and looks. It's all the same hardware that you would find in the aircraft. And so a lot of fun. Test pilots are amazing to work with. And so, there's a lot of coolness to it.
Awesome. My grandfather, Vinton Smith, I grew up in Connecticut, and he was in the military, and he was one of the first commercial and military helicopter pilots back in the day. Cause we're talking early 1900, you know what I mean? And he flew one of the first Sikorsky helicopters. So when you're talking about helicopter simulators and stuff, I'm like, that's fascinating. I got to bring this up and tell him like my heritage goes back, and I have an original pilot from back then.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah. I always was fascinated with the Sikorsky sky crane. The thing could pick up like, I don't know, anything like a boat or something, had this tremendous lifting capacity. Yeah, Sikorsky.
It looks like it
cool.
defies physics, right?
Yeah,
because you see it and you're like, how is that thing carrying that? Is it double propeller as opposed to, what do they call the back one, the stabilizer, or is it just the stabilizing propeller?
For the Sikorsky, they're both main rotor blades, right?
Okay, yeah.
There's not a stabilizer in a traditional chopper with a single main rotor blade. You have a tail rotor that offsets the force of the main rotor. So as the main rotor spinning, sort of action reaction, you spin the rotor this way, then the aircraft body wants to go the other way, and so you put something on the tail to push, against that force, so you can fly straight ahead.
Yeah,
otherwise it would be a very
topsy
turvy spinny. It's a roller coaster, man. Yeah.
Now, how long did you do that kind of work?
Maybe a couple of years when I was in the process of graduating. So junior and senior year, I did work as call it a junior engineer. I would go work a semester at Bell Helicopter, then come back to school. And then about 2 or 3 years coming out of school, I did that, loved it, but, had a passion for, entrepreneurial things.
Hmm.
In high school and in college and then, coming out. So a buddy of mine and I had some side hustles going on I was doing my nerdy aerospace engineering, and we ended up starting, to work in the life sciences area. And so I spent a little time in the life sciences. Just in aerospace is great, and I love the math and science of it, but there wasn't enough, like, this sense of community and people aspect of it. You walk into an engineering room, people working, and everybody's sort of head down, immersed
Yeah.
in their own little world, which is cool. I can do that, but I gotta have people, man. I gotta talk to people. I gotta have that sense of community, and so I wasn't finding that, and so I started looking elsewhere. I looked in the life sciences for a little bit, and then, hey, I picked up a guitar to sing a song for my wife for our anniversary. Like, my first musical experience. So other than just being an avid listener of music my whole life,
Right.
a soundtrack for everything, right? The soundtrack for, rollerblading and surfing and playing tennis and studying. I'm like, I love music so much. I should try to create music in some way. And so I picked up a guitar to sing a song for my wife for our anniversary. And oh my goodness, the sense of community and connection and just, I don't know, the transference of love and energy in that moment was like, oh my God, where has this been my whole life?
Yeah. Like an epiphany, right? Just like
Yeah,
discovering.
it was like this boom, like, I'm pretty experimental. I try a bunch of different things. And so I've had things that I've tried that I've enjoyed, but never like anything transcendental like that. Like yeah, blew my mind. And I'm like, man, I love this music thing. I got to learn, right? Because,
Now,
I didn't know anything.
was it somebody else's song, or was it something that you created yourself?
I wish it was my song. Yeah,
Okay.
when you go to do a thing, it's like, okay, well, I don't know anything about music. I've never played or sung before, other than maybe I think I played the recorder in elementary school. The little
Like all of
flute-looking
us.
thing,
Yeah.
right? Other than that, I think I'd never done anything musical, and so I decided, okay, well, I put it on my list. Like, I'm a big goal-oriented person, so I put it on my New Year's resolutions list. And so I was like, okay, I got around to like May, and I hadn't done anything yet, and I'm usually pretty good about planning things. And so I'm like, all right, it's May, I haven't done anything yet. I'm gonna sing a song for my wife for our anniversary. And so I went to a local guitar shop and said, hey, I need to play a song for my wife, and for our anniversary. The guy was, oh, that's so cool. Said, I don't have a guitar. He's like, well, he was helping me shop, and I'm like, okay, I'll buy a guitar from you. Kind of, this is a local guitar shop guy. I love local people, and like, okay, but you gotta agree to teach me to play this and sing the song, because he had a school in the back too that he taught lessons. And he's like,
Very
oh,
good.
that sounds amazing. I'm so great. So we're checking out, and he's like, okay, so how long have you been playing music? And I'm like,
0 years. Right.
0 years. And he's like, how long have you been singing? 0 years. And he's like, have you done anything musical? I'm like, no. He's like, okay, how much time do we have? I was like, we got 2 months, dude, man. That's amazing, right? 2 months. And he's like, you're kidding me, right? Is the song Twinkle Twinkle Little Star by chance? And I was like, nope, it's not that. He's like, okay, what is it? So it was a song called What You Give by this old rock band called Tesla.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I'm
I
familiar.
love the lyrics. The lyrics for it were just like, to me, it's about a life of service, right? I love somebody. It's not what I talk about. It's what I do that matters. And so the lyrics were very, very meaningful to me. And that's the way I felt about serving my wife. So yeah, I sang it. It's a great song, and didn't think about writing. I didn't know anything, right? So I just had a first experience. I'm like, wow, music's great. And then I was on this journey, like, okay, Tim, what did I love about that? Was it playing the guitar? Was it just the song? Was it singing? Was it the restaurant that I sang it to her in? Was it just
Right.
her being special? Right? I didn't know what it was. And so I went on this little journey to uncover what it was. And so
And
I
I'm
met some
assuming it
guys.
was received well, right? Because obviously if it wasn't, you probably wouldn't be on this journey today, right?
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. I think I'd say like three things. One, so there was probably another 15 or 20 people in the restaurant with us. It's like it's intimate Italian restaurant, and so they all pulled their chairs around, and we had a nice moment together.
Yeah.
And
How'd that
so,
feel? How'd you feel about having an audience?
yeah, I'm not a shy guy, so I was like, all
Okay.
right, I'm doing the thing. You don't know what you don't know, and so I was like, all right. So I think the moment was received very well by my wife and everybody. We had, everybody sort of signed our anniversary card. It was a great moment for me. But it's like, you don't. Yeah, there was like some funny moments. Like I couldn't remember the lyrics and the chords and everything together, and so I made a giant anniversary card and put and embedded in the anniversary card, I put the lyrics and the chords.
That's
And
brilliant.
so it was like on the table, so it was like a giant poster board, and so she could see it was an anniversary card, but it was also my music.
Yeah,
My
on the
music
back side of
guide,
it.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that's the engineering mind taking
Yeah,
over and
see,
saying,
that's how it works.
that's how we do
Boom.
this, right?
Yeah. So, but after that, you have a moment. It was received well, everything was well, but you're not any good, right? You've never done music before, so you just don't know, about it. So like the first time, you get on a skateboard, you roll on it or something like that, you're like, oh, I kind of like this, but you really need to learn how, and you fall a lot and whatever. And so the music is the same as anything else in life. So as I started on this journey, to learn about music, I put a little cover band together and just wanted to play one show in a band. I'd never done that before. And as I was iterating, learning and playing, I started changing the lyrics to songs because they didn't say what I wanted to say, right? I'm a positive guy and a little nerdy, but mainly positive. And so I just can't sing a song. It's such a personal thing to sing. It's like I can't sing a song that I don't agree with the lyrics. And so I would, tweak the words to say what I wanted to say.
Sure.
And people were like, that's not the lyrics, Mark. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, but it's what I want to say. And they would tell me, well, write your own music.
Yeah. 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 Because when you're doing a cover band or cover songs, oftentimes people are showing up to hear the thing specifically from that song, right?
Yeah.
And understandably so, but that's definitely a paradigm shift. It sounds like that happened to you where you got to a certain level and you decided, I like the expression of this, but it needs to be something that comes from me now, right? And I can relate to that personally because going through high school, I started when I was about 11, 12 years old, right?
Okay.
And going through high school, instead of having a jazz band, we had a rock band, and invariably we did tons of covers, but we also had an amazing teacher, this guy John Smeda, and he had connections in the industry. And the 3 years that I was in the rock band, we had studio time in the spring, and every time we did that, we did a selection of covers, but we also were encouraged and invited to do originals. And every year I would do an original tune. And one year we did this jazz fusion thing. Dude, it was so cool. I have to find a recording of it somewhere. To this day, I haven't been able to find it. I'm sure there's some old friends I can poke at on Facebook or whatever, but it was a real cool jam. And my music teacher, John, is still to this day, he still performs. He's an amazing alto sax player, and he played that on there and just freaking burned through this solo and made my solo look paltry by comparison. But I'm like, I look back on it and I'm like, it was so cool to have your teacher playing on a track, and he was enjoying himself, and he's like, man, that's a really cool jam, dude. We literally had what was called, it was like a nightclub night in the spring where we performed a bunch of tracks, and we did one, and he knew the bass player and the lead of the Saturday Night Live band at one point. I forget his name. It's on the tip of my tongue, but he invited him to play with us, and we played that jazz tune. And he looked at me. He was like, "Man, that's really," and I'm like, "Dude, this guy plays on Saturday Night Live and he loves my music." I was like, "Oh my God, this is such a cool experience," you know?
And high school studio time and all these, that's gotta be, those are amazing, memories. That's pretty cool, dude. That's amazing.
And freshman year, the first studio we recorded in was Ace Frehley's from Kiss's mansion just north of New Haven, Connecticut. And dude, it was like, I never matched that again. I'd have to go to, I don't know, go to England and do what the Beatles did with Abbey Road or something to top that one off,
That's crazy. Yeah. I've yet to, I have a few little like encounters I've had with like very successful people, but they've been super minimal. So nothing like that, like you've had an experience with. But I think you're right. Like, there's a difference. And I think like, as I was sifting through the music industry, leaning more in, like you said, there was sort of a pivot, for me. I think that's a pivot, if you're being thoughtful and you're a professional. Like, what do I want to do in music? Do I want to write scores for movies and video games? I did that a little. I mean, I like composing, but I didn't, I didn't like that because there wasn't a live connection component to it. And so like, okay, well, then I could play covers, and I like covers, but I have something to say. And so that's why I'm in music. And so I can't really say what I want to say with covers. And so even if I change them up and whatever, I still, it feels like I'm sort of, working with chopsticks, that are 20 feet long instead of, eating food right in front of me. So I'm like,
it's an amazing analogy.
Like, I can sort of do what I want to do, but not really over there. And so I landed in the original scene just because, I love the live connection with people. I love saying what I want to say. And, to be honest, like, I'm a positive person. I like creating a little positive energy in a room or positive energy in a moment with somebody who's listening to my track. And so, I know a lot of people who like, they kind of like original music, but they like performing more than they like saying something, right? And it's like, okay. And so those people, don't care whether they're doing originals or whether they're doing covers. I just have a personal bias myself. I'm like, all right, I'm all about the original music. That's what I want to do. That's what brings me joy. And so that kind of, led me down the road to start writing my own stuff. 2019 is when I wrote my first set of music. So yeah.
Nice. And I had a similar paradigm shift, different timeline. It was post high school. About 2-3 years after that, I'd done some, live performances and, again, cover songs, that kind of thing. And I'm like, just not vibing on this. And I actually had a stint of time, like from 20 or so to 26, 27, where I didn't do much of anything with music. I had this big gap and definitely felt the void because there's an experience that was missing and lost there. But now I do what I do, which is royalty-free music creation, and I enjoy it immensely because I get to help, augment other creative spaces and everything else. So, but it sounds like for you, this is all happening, and now you're doing work not in aerospace, but in the other space, right? In the human, what would you call it? You said the.
I did a little bit of life sciences, but okay. I at the moment, all I do is music. I played some showcases at South by Southwest in
fantastic
2022 and 2023, and made some industry connections there. And
so you're all in at that point.
I'm all in.
Yeah.
So, but to plan my first tour and all the things that kind of go with that, I started working on that in 2024, and so 2024 was all about just sort of getting my project organized and getting 25's tour book. So I did a spring and a fall tour last year, played about 150 shows, and
a lot of
this year. And you mentioned like the Beatles. I did a lot of research myself just to sort of be purposeful about writing and performing and rehearsing and stage time, and just sort of making sure that I was sort of in the motions to make myself as successful as possible. Most everyone, the Beatles, everyone else included, they have a period like where you have to just sort of grind on music. I think they played a show every night in that little club for like a year or something like that, just to sort of gel their music. And so for me, like, touring, the first year of touring was a lot about that, right? I probably played a total of 100 shows before I went on tour. And then I played 150 in 1 year, right? And so, just a lot of growth musically for me, to, to play that many rooms and that many shows and a show every night, and, just sort of really helped me internalize music and internalize my music, and really grow. And this year I'm doing the same thing. I had a spring tour this year, and then I have a fall one I'm leaving on at the end of August.
Mm-hmm. You'd be close to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
End of October. So I'm looking forward to that.
Looking forward to meeting you in person for sure. But yeah, I think you got to put your 10,000 steps in. And so for me, being on this journey, touring journey, is a lot about finding my community, finding my people, and also, giving myself room to grow and learn. And it's phenomenal, man. I'm all in, dude. All in.
That's awesome. So learning and doing covers is one thing, but then once you get into writing your own music, I find that there's various paths that you can find to get to that place. There's artists that I've been fond of in the past that had little to no music theory. A couple examples are Hans Zimmer. He has limited music. I mean, at this point, probably more so because he's been doing it for decades and probably has augmented however he started his musical journey with additional training, or even just the osmosis of working with other musicians. You just learn things. You learn techniques, you learn modes, you learn scales, you learn all sorts of stuff. Eddie Van Halen, I mean, he was originally the drummer of Van Halen when it wasn't called Van Halen. And the story is that his brother ruined his instrument, so they switched instruments, and he took up the guitar, and that's the history was made, right? And
Dave Grohl, right?
Yeah. So my question to you is, as you shifted from this feeling of like, I don't really want to do covers anymore, I really kind of want to express myself and my own musicality, how did theory, if at all, factor into things, and how did you build kind of a repertoire of the understanding how to construct and formulate songs for yourself?
Yeah, so that, great question. I'd say like my engineering mind, right? I'm ambidextrous, and I do things differently depending on what it is. As a matter of fact, I got to try everything with both hands first to see where it fits in my head. So like I'll paint or write poetry left-handed, and then I'll do engineering work right-handed or whatever. And so like, for me, the learning an instrument, right? The guitar first was my first instrument to learn. Guitar has a very different theory approach. It's a little, I think it's a little more iterative and less formal for most people that I've talked with. So you can get online, chords or shapes, put your fingers like this. You're going to learn a lead line. There are tabs. You can put your left finger on fret 3 of string 2, right? And so it's kind of, I'll call like paint by numbers, right? You can sort of skirt away from theory. And so as I was learning cover songs and whatever else, I learned a ton of songs just memorizing the lead lines and memorizing the chord patterns and not really caring about theory. It hit me a lot when if I had to improvise a solo or something like that, I would have to work the solo out first.
Sure. Yeah.
I couldn't do it on the fly because I just didn't understand. And then even singing a melody or singing a harmony on something, I didn't get it. And so, I would always be a lead singer. So, some limitations that you could start feeling. And then so as I started, writing my own music, the very first thing I did, my engineering mind at work, I was like, all right, I'm going to go take college music theory. I bought courses on Udemy, $9 each, and it's like a self-paced video learning platform. And so I learned music theory 1 and 2, how to read scores, because I really wanted to start arranging my own music. And so I learned enough there. I learned digital audio workstations as
Mhm.
well in
Which
that
yours a
same
choice?
platform.
Which one do you
I
like?
use Logic.
Yeah, me too.
I've been a Mac person, right? So I just sort of started using that. I've used Pro Tools and some others as well. But so I'd say like, in the beginning, just sort of arranging my stuff on my own, self-taught. I taught myself off the internet for stuff. And as I started sitting down with my producer to do my first set of songs, like you talk about osmosis, right? I had enough theory, but everything had to be in slow motion for me, right? It's like, okay, you know, hey, why don't we put this other chord in the progression to support the melody better? It's like, I have to slow it all down and hear it and just experience it for the first time. I cut all my own, guitar work in the studio. I told my producer, I'm going to be the most annoying guy ever, right? So just realize when I hire you that I don't know anything. It's my first time to do it all. And I'm going to want to do all the vocal parts, lead and harmony. And I'm going to want to do all the guitar parts just so I learn. And so I remember like being in the studio cutting guitar tracks, and I remember it took for my first song. It was so weird. I'm in the studio. I got these cans on my ears. I can't hear anything. A click track. What is that? How do I, just getting, it was such a weird experience.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's not a lot of percussion in your tracks, correct? So making sure everything's in time and having a click it's paramount to the recording, right?
It is important, and I would say is percussion, but just it's like, it's like you've never swam before, and someone throws you in the ocean off a cruise liner, and you're like, "What is this water? And why does it taste salty? And why am I sinking? Right? And how do I? You have no clue. You don't know what's going on. It's just like a sensory overwhelmed." I remember 26 takes to get just the rhythm part down, the lead rhythm part down for my first song in the studio.
Yeah.
My producer was like,
I would chalk that up to, the tension of and the whatchamacallit, the first time jitters of doing that. You know what I mean?
Just inexperienced, right? I mean, you don't know what you're doing. And so like, I would say, but my engineering mind, once I know what's possible and how to get there, I have great discipline. And so I started teaching I worked with a lot of professionals in the studio. And so I saw how they acted and what they did. And so, I was on this journey to learn. And so I would say, a lot of my engineering discipline and knowledge, because I think musical scores and composition have a lot of science and mathematical similarities to them. And so I was that helped me a lot. So I learned very rapidly on, my guitar, my piano work, but then vocals, they're like even more strange because it's like I'm singing and I don't know how to sing. And, every now and then I'll hit a good note with good tone. I'm like, oh, how did I do that? Right.
Yeah.
And so, so it's the only thing that I couldn't teach myself. I got a vocal coach, and that helped me out tremendously. Not knowing what solfege is, or not. I mean, I'd already learned, scales and modes and whatever because I'd studied music theory. So it was just the internalization, ear training, and the internalization of controlling your own vocal track. That was the most like human to human. And that's why I love singing so much. It's such a human expression, right? It's just so tasty, So yeah, that was that, as a matter of fact, I intentionally think of singing as a left-handed activity. I hold my mic in my left hand.
Okay.
Right? It has nothing to do with theory in my mind. It's all about a personal expression and body mechanics that go with that personal expression. And so it helps me. Anytime I tried to be overly technical and controlling, like I would something engineering oriented, you get nothing out of your vocals that way.
Right.
So you have to just sort of let it all go and go on this journey of being, terrible, and then a little better and a little better and a little better until you finally start kind of internalizing it and getting it,
Yeah, that's fascinating. What I'm hearing from you is that there's a real yin yang thing going on with your musical experience, and it developed, it seems, very quickly from 2019 to now. There's the methodical, analytical left brain portion, which stems from your engineering background. But you very quickly grew to understand the feeling, vibe, and full on understanding that through your vocals and through your expressiveness of writing your own music, there's a right brain expressive side of things where you actually have to feel what you're doing. And I feel like your early stage to even now, that's probably how you found tonality. Like there's the base level of it is from an engineering perspective, you're like, I can hear that that's wrong and I need to modify things going forward. Whereas understanding those two sides of your brain and how to bring those things together and the training you've taken since 2019 to now, I bet you it's just made you a better songwriter.
Yeah, I think for sure. I'd say three things for the songwriting bit. So yes, internalizing both sides. So like, it's the first thing I've done where I feel like both sides of my brain are in balance, like surfing the wave and everything's sort of working together. This creative side of me and, the discipline side of me all kind of collaborating. But I would say, I went to my very first educational offering in songwriting. I went to a songwriting retreat in Austin with Andrea Stolpe, and it's the first time I'd ever like studied in person with other people. There were people from all over the country that came to the retreat. We were there for a week, and every night we got split into teams, and we had to co-write and perform that night a song we wrote. And so I was in this sort of amazing, beautiful space with all these cool people, and I really learned how to unlock, the naturalness of me, free writing and expression, and lyrics, all that comes very natural to me, and then organizing them in some kind of a melodic motif and getting the structure together, So I learned a lot about that, and that was 3 years ago. That helped me a ton know what a professional writer, because everybody I was in the room with, they were, artists or professional writers, and so it was just like an amazing immersion. And so that helped me a ton, kind of get to the point. I saw what other people were good at and how natural that they were and how they learned to express themselves in different ways. And I sort of adopted a lot of great habits, from that as a songwriter.
That sounds like it was very welcoming and open environment. And in a lot of ways, those kind of workshops, they can be that, or they can be very intimidating, because I'm imagining there's various levels of skill around you.
Oh my goodness.
With the groups. And if I had walked into one, say when I was 10, and I had the maturity to understand what I was going into or whatever, but I walked into one that had somebody at the level where they're professional and everything, it'd be very intimidating. How did that feel? How did it feel walking in and seeing some of these people and their ability to perform? Because even to this day, I see some other musicians and I enjoy what I make, and I know I do well at what I do, but there's people that they're astronomically better than me at music. And in some ways it's very intimidating and it's humbling, but at the same time, I am very, very much in awe and appreciation of what they can accomplish at that stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The way my brain works. So I would say two things. One, so the very first time, I think 2021, I can't remember when. So let's say 2 or 3 years before, I really started going musically, I went to a blues guitar workshop in California with a friend of mine. A bass player in my band was going to go, and I went with him. And it was the first time I ever sat in front of a professional performer and worked with them, right? So they had 5 professional blues guitarists leading the workshop, and we were all students sort of learning. And I thought I'd studied some of the blues standards, and I thought I kind of knew what I was doing when I showed up, and I just saw like what professional competency really looked like.
Yeah.
And made friends with those people. But I saw what was possible. And so for me, I'm very courageous, and I don't get intimidated easily. And so I see, oh, hey, Tim's great at this, right? Tim, give it to me, man. Show me how it works, right? And I'm like soaking it in, right? And I don't care if I'm messing up or whatever. I'm trying to catch up and stay on the groove, right? And so for me, that's very much the way that blues guitar workshop went. And coming back, I had a whole new practice routine to sort of elevate myself. And then when I came into the songwriting workshop in Austin, I, I was pretty comfortable with lyrics and pretty comfortable with my guitar work and just like rudimentary musical understanding of composition, but vocally, like the first group I worked with, there were there were groups of three. There were two Berklee vocal music graduates who had been out for 2 years, and these two girls, one of them was a country singer, one was a pop singer. It's like they were good, right? It's like, okay. And so for me, like my natural inclination was, okay, what can I do in this group to help potentiate Tim's amazingness? Tim's amazing at this thing. So what can I do to elevate Tim? And so that was my approach to writing in all the groups that I was in for that week was, okay, just to sort of assess who's good at what, and then how can we all collaborate in a way that gives us the best song. And that served me super well. And the lady who was running it, critiqued everyone every day because there was only 25 of us. So she gave you, okay, here's what I heard you doing in the group writing. Here's what I heard you in the performance. Here's what I think you should work on, right? And so it was very inviting, but it was also very intimidating because everyone was amazing at a lot of things. And I found my weakness while I was there, like, okay, which it wasn't a surprise. Vocally, I just didn't have the training. I couldn't control my voice. I didn't understand it well enough. I couldn't on the fly do the things I needed to do. I needed to break it down and be slow, which doesn't work in songwriting. And so, I got great homework leaving that to say, okay, here's what you need to look like in a year as a songwriter. And so I did all the things they asked me to do. I wrote with every great melody writer I could find collaboratively and on my own. And so yeah, I could see, if you're a shy person or you're afraid to make a mistake or you're afraid to be bad, then you're going to bounce off of an environment like that. So you gotta be all right. You know what? I haven't done this before. I'm going to do the best I can, and I'm going to keep learning. And so that's been my approach, ever since. That's kind of my natural approach, just to see what's possible and find the wonder and find people who are good at it and just get that osmosis cooking, man. Come on, Tim, send me some good mojo,
Right. Yeah. I mean, music composition and songwriting is really about making a ton of mistakes and then finding that one or two things that really speaks to your heart. There's songs I go back to that I've written myself, and whether or not they resonate with anybody else, they put hairs up in the back of my neck. There's something about the way that the music comes out, the way that the melody transgresses and just or evolves, that just, it hits me. It's a part of me, and it reminds me of a part of my, like a time in my life, like a sliver, like a point in time. It's like time traveling, really. And when you can capture that and you don't screw it up in the production process where you're mastering it, that's the key. Is like, I don't overproduce it, because if you lose that feeling, and sometimes it's just like a little hesitation that you leave in there that you thought was a mistake, but it wasn't a mistake. The hesitation told the story too, Just stuff like that, man, it's just what makes hunting. Like, I've written over 1,000 tracks, and I don't think I'll ever stop. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And it fills my heart with joy, and it fills my heart with joy to talk to other people that love the process as well. And it feels to me like now you're at the point where you had this epicenter of expanding the reach of your music locally to you. And now you're on a regular path of these live performances and this touring. It sounds like you have multiple tours. The plan at this point is to have multiple tours a year and take some breaks, just probably for your own peace of mind and health and recovery.
It's funny. Yeah. So yes, I'm on the path. I'm growing, expanding. I love live performances. I love the community. I love collaborative writing. So I'm in that motion like you. I know what I love to do, and I love where I find that common energy.
Mm-hmm.
To me, touring is like, it's like getting up to go to a new school to meet new friends. You know, it's like, oh, okay, I get to meet some new people today. That's phenomenal. It lights me up to be out in the community performing and connecting with new people. And so I tour, I have 2 tours a year is sort of the plan. So I did that last year, this year. I'm doing that again next year, finding my community. I'll probably tour maybe a little bit less in 28. I think I've given myself like 3 years to sort of find my community places and people.
Right.
And so maybe 150 shows in a year might be a little more than I want to do, you know, consistently. I love performing and I get excited to do it. And it's, you know, but it's, you know, to do the other things I need to do, to collaborate, write with other people, to go to festivals, you know, to spend time with my family, you know, so there's a balance in there. And so, you know, I gotta, you know, not be quite as aggressive on the tour schedule, you know, and be, you know, more purposeful in 28. But yeah, I'm on the journey. I've already, you know, this year's tours completely planned. Next year's tours are in the works of being finished right now. So there'll be a spring and a fall of 27, and lots of, you know, anything about your downtime, you know, writing, you know, I can do a lot of song starts on the road, right? But I'm not good enough yet where I can like completely knock a song out in 3 hours. I can get it. I can get the melody and a verse and a chorus together, maybe, you know, and write the rest of the lyrics, sort of get it together in 2 or 3 hours, but it's not finished, right? And so I have like loads of song starts, poems or song starts from the road. You know, you gotta have some time to curate through those and actually do something with them. You know, release music. I try to release music every 6 weeks, and so you gotta sort of still do all that while you're on the road. So I get a little bit of recovery and take care of other things while I'm back in town.
Hey, you're speaking to the choir to me, because right now I'm actually in a process. I've got like 200 plus projects that are, like you said, starts at varying levels. Some of them are literally just a simple melody that I captured at one point. Others are 95% done. It's just a matter of cleaning up some of the tracks and mastering them and getting them published. And like, that's the phase I'm at right now with my stuff. After I hit 1,000 songs last year, I took kind of a 6-month hiatus. It was a strong production year. I had done a similar thing. I looked at a bunch of old projects that I had, but also built new ones, and ended up publishing something to the tune of like 275 tracks, something like that.
That's insane.
Yeah.
I like, you know, for me, I'm writing. I'm typically like, I'm a feeling generated writer. I write about a thing. And so like the lyrics always are, you know, ahead of, I purposefully written a melody ahead of the lyrics, but that's an odd way to write for me. I'm typically more of a lyric because there's something I want to say. And so I have a process, you know, for how I do that. But, you know, I don't know that I've probably written maybe 300 songs. So I'm way behind you on that front.
Well, understand this.
Yeah.
I don't have mine are instrumentals. So I get to tell stories with melodies, not with lyrics. And I feel that the lyric level is another peak, because now you're tying in thoughtful words to the melody that really kind of make this resonation at an even higher level. And that's something I aspire to at some point as like an alternate persona to this main brand that I have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my baseline compositional product is royalty-free instrumentals. So kudos to you, dude. If you've done 300 tracks with actual lyrics and something to say, that's a lot of things to say. And it sounds like you got more to say.
I got tons to say. And when I was in Austin in my songwriting retreat, I learned a lot of things. And so like Andrea Stolpe, who runs the thing, she's like, okay, I watched you, you know, in your groups. This is my final, you know, feedback from her. Right. So I can put you in any group. Right. And you are the glue that pulls everything together, and you make, you know, so your ability to capture prosody and rhythm and chord movement and supporting the melody and the chord movement and the lyrics is amazing. Those are like superpowers of yours, right? You write boring melodies, but everything else you're super strong at. And so go work on your melody writing, but it also helps me like I can sit down, and when I came back, I co-wrote with everybody I could find. I can sit down with a good melodist, an intuitive melodist, 3 hours every time. I've never met you before. 3 hours, we have a completed song.
Wow.
Right. And we cut a demo with either the piano, the guitar, and the voice, and it's done. And I'll knock on wood. I've yet to sit down with someone who's like a great vocal melodist, and I didn't walk away 3 hours later with a completed song. Now we may tweak it a little bit afterwards or whatever, but so that to me, I know the more people that I sit down and write with, right? I can't, if I'm sitting down with someone who's also not very good at melody, right? But they're good at everything else, right? Then I'll put my guitar down and say, okay, I'm going to be the melodist for the day, right? And so, because that function needs to be there in the process, right? But I've learned that about myself, and I'm working hard to improve my, my natural melody writing, vocal melody writing. A guitar, I can write guitar parts and whatever compositionally on the piano, whatever. But just vocally, I'm still working on that skill. It's still a bit stilted, where I have to sort of iterate on it quite a bit before I get the melody that I really want. So I learned that about myself, and I also learned that I've produced songs, but I don't like production. I'm not a producer, right? I can hear things that are wrong with the production, but I don't love fixing them.
Okay.
Right. So I have an idea like, oh yeah, we need there needs to be something going in there. And a good producer's like, oh yeah, let's do the thing. And oh yeah, that's what I was looking for. And so for me, like I hear what needs to be present in a track to preserve its emotional integrity, but I don't like keyboard shortcuts and all the, I don't like comping vocals. I do it, but
which
I
is
don't like
amazing
it.
considering you have an engineering background, that you don't want to dive into that with this specific thing. You know what I mean? Like you're just like, nope,
it's funny.
Nope,
it's like,
I don't want to do anything there.
I know how to do it. I know how to do the thing, but I'm like, nope, I tried it and I don't, it doesn't bring me joy. Right.
Well, it sounds like your songwriting flexibility engenders a wide range of co-publication opportunities, working with probably several or dozens of various people. And that brings me to the distribution question. You must have a very open and liberal distribution policy as to the way that you distribute your music. Can you talk a little bit about how you do that?
Yeah, I've tried. It's funny. I'm a big strategist. So like, okay, what's the thing and what's the right way to do the thing and whatever. And so I did in the beginning, my first one, I just did CD Baby because I've heard that was a good independent artist thing. And so I got used to that. My second album, there was I released through Orchard, which is a Sony division.
Familiar?
Thinking I'm going to get like all this exposure opportunity working with a label, right? Which is not the case. Then I went back to, okay, you need to own your own sort of fan community building, get good at it, find the discovery platforms that work for you and do the thing, do the motion, right? Distribution is what it is. And so I use DistroKid today. It's nice and easy. For me, it's more friendly than any of the other platforms as an independent person. And so for me, like distribution for me just needs to be, efficient and reliable, right? And then have good accounting, which DistroKid sort of fits all those buckets. And I don't count on, the family sedan being my race car, right? I gotta go find my own, marketing and my own, exposure opportunities outside of distribution. And so, DistroKid, a long-winded way to say DistroKid, Tim.
Yeah, which is what I did that. I did DistroKid for about 5 years, and then I shifted to a different company because I was looking for some other opportunities, specifically on the master side and ultimately both the composition and the master side. And I've actually engaged with a neighboring rights organization as well. Not as much of an exposure for me because that's more like unique TV radio, that kind of thing. And I don't get as much exposure there. I'm more social media and social, online platforms with the use of my stuff, because creatives will grab it and use it for background sonic ambience and that kind of thing. So, but when you're publishing and distributing things, you want to try to get into every bucket you can, because let's face it, like if there's money there to be had, want to collect it, especially in my case where I'm giving it away. I don't have a paywall up front. So the idea is the more massive reach and exposure that I have, the more money I make. So
that's amazing. I think I'm always fascinated by where people find their natural motion in music that's also sustainable. It gives them economic sustainability. How did you find your footing, right? To land there. You sound like a very purposeful and thoughtful person, Tim. So you know exactly what you're trying to do, and you know what success looks like.
Yeah.
I meet so many people in music, like, okay, this blows my mind. Like, I'll go perform with somebody and they are the most phenomenal performer and writer, right? And then I go and I look at their social media and it's terrible, right? And so then I'm talking to them after their performance. I'm like, okay, you're pretty amazing, right? And they're like, yeah, but somewhat bitterly, but somebody else, owns all the channels. And so I never get exposure and I don't do the thing. And so I have a day job and this is what I really want to do. And I'm like, oh, okay. So my brain's like, okay, look, dude, you can throw like a rock and hit like 15 influencers who will tell you how to grow on social media as a discovery platform to give yourself opportunity. And if you just did those things, then you would be able to do what you want to do, right, as a professional. But they'll tell me, hey, I hate social media, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, so you're just never gonna get traction for your project because like there's no labels today. They don't exist unless you have like, some viral moment on a social media platform, right? Because the economics don't work for them, to work down. Yeah,
no, and it really,
level.
it really has to do with the decline of physical media. There used to be so many different delivery structures for revenue, and that's the big challenge. So my value proposition is a long-term strategy, right? And it's not the most economically viable one, but it's also what my heart tells me is the way I should be sharing my music. And it's through that value add with creatives online and with movie TV producers and all that personal, in the age of AI and people just publishing things and then just strikes coming down on various platforms, YouTube, wherever, for usage without attribution, which is how I get things. There's plenty of people that distribute the way that I do that just say, well, you're out of luck, either comply or whatever, and I'm the kind of person that's like, I would rather give you the guidance and the tools to use what I have and fix a problem that you might be having so that I get a fan and a user for life rather than have a paywall up front. And I feel like that is the ultimate key for me and my catalog for it to grow and to create a fan base that's viciously loyal down the road. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I will build the rest of it around it. And I just take chances constantly, Mark. I literally do campaigns with like visuals and I'm like, well, this isn't getting the traction. Okay, we're going to go back to the drawing board. We're going to start over. Let's try this instead and do that instead. And just, collaborations, interviewing people like yourself, like bringing people to the table, having a conversation. I think this kind of thing is what people ultimately 3-5 years from now, when we lose so many jobs to automations and everything else, it's going to be the human experience that people are going to be craving. They're going to want there's so many things that just are automated. Every customer service line I call is automated. Every process I do is automated. God, I just want to talk to a person. Well, guess what? With my catalog, that'll always be the case. So that's amazing.
Playing in the key of Tim.
Yeah. I'm gonna
Yeah, I
take
love
that.
that
I'm
personal
gonna take
connection.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, you should do it, man. I love that personal connection for sure. That's why I love live music, right? Let me share
yeah,
this with you in person, right? So yeah, that's to me the ultimate the ultimate satisfaction, you know.
yeah. Well, I'm excited for your journey here, Mark. What I've heard so far is incredibly inspiring, and it feels to me like you've gone from nothing to a full-blown career in a very short period of time, and that's incredibly impressive. I can't wait to see you perform live, and I can't wait to see the progress of your career. It's going to progress. I have no doubt in my mind's eye. You're just a fountain of positive energy. There's nothing negative about anything we've talked about in the last hour. I feel like what you're building here is a real positive thing, and I cannot wait to see what comes up next for Mark Winters. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for spending time with me today. I really look forward to seeing you at the end of October. And I can't give you enough accolades, man.
Thank you so much, Tim. I really appreciate it. You've got great energy yourself. And anyone who's listening out there, I would invite you to think like a proton and shine with me.
Nice, nice. Thanks, Mark.
You got it, brother.